Now, this issue is likely to come up in the upcoming Quad summit too. Biden will soon be flying down for it to Japan. So will be India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida will be hosting them. He will also be welcoming Australia's Prime Minister. But who will that be? Who will be Australia's Prime Minister attending the Quad summit? We don't know. Scott Morrison has been Australia's Prime Minister since 2018. It's hard to say whether he will remain in office after the May 21st elections. That's tomorrow. We're being told it's a tight race. Incumbent Morrison is up against Anthony Albanese. He is the leader of Australia's Labour Party, 59 years old. He has served as a cabinet minister under multiple prime ministers, be it Kevin Rudd or Julia Gillard. In fact, Albanese was also a deputy prime minister under Rudd. Goes without saying, he's a seasoned politician. He likes being portrayed as a working class man. He accuses Morrison of lacking leadership. Morrison's party, on the other hand, has been telling Australians that it, quote unquote, won't be easy under Albanese. The slogan focuses on the proposed economic policies. This election is being fought on a range of issues, in fact. Economy, of course, tops the chart. Inflation has hit a 20-year high in Australia. Cost of living has increased drastically. Then there's the supply chain crisis. Also global uncertainty, given the war in Europe. And how can we forget the climate emergency? Australia has been fighting some of its worst wildfires and floods in recent history. Albanese is expected to be more climate friendly in comparison to Scott Morrison. But here's something experts have been pointing out time and again. No matter who wins Australia, nothing changes drastically at home. And that's because in Australia, prominent parties rarely have deep ideological divide. In other words, they more or less agree on a basic structure when it comes to running the government. Where they differ is their approach to the world. Scott Morrison, for instance, tore up Australia's contract for French-built submarines. Albanese criticized him for doing it. He even called him weak. Morrison has also been called a vocal critic of China. His government called for an investigation into the origin of the Wuhan virus. When China announced its security pact with the Solomon Islands, the Morrison government spared no harsh words to criticize it. Morrison's ministers even hinted at the possibility of a war with China. Will Albanese go down the same road? Experts say he's likely to be less stern and more diplomatic when it comes to dealing with Beijing. Recently, AUKUS featured as a bone of contention between Morrison and Albanese. Albanese, in fact, criticized the sitting Prime Minister for not briefing the opposition before signing that deal on nuclear submarines with the US and the UK. Morrison said there was no need to brief the opposition.
This was one of the most secure and highly confidential agreements the Australian government had entered into since ANZUS.
This Prime Minister has continued to play politics and to suggest that that wasn't the case at each and every opportunity. The problem for this Prime Minister is that he's always looking for a conflict and a division.
Albanese's party calls China's pact with the Solomon Islands the quote-unquote worst failure of Australian foreign policy in the Pacific. He's not said much about his own policies in China. He has promised to be completely consistent with the Morrison government on Chinese competition. But he was asked whether he will call Chinese President Xi Jinping should he become the Prime Minister, and Albanese refused to comment. He said that his priority would be to meet Australia's allies. In fact, let me read out what he told an Australian newspaper. I will visit the Quad and renew my acquaintance with President Joe Biden, but also meet, very importantly, with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who are important friends of Australia. So he already has a plan in place in case he wins tomorrow's election. It involves a swearing-in ceremony as early as the 22nd of May, that's Sunday, so that he can quickly fly down to Japan to attend the Quad meeting. What are the chances that Albanese will indeed be flying to Tokyo for this meeting? Well, quite high, actually. Polls show him leading the race. It's a tight race, but he's in the lead. Morrison, on the other hand, may lose out on voters for reportedly delaying the rollout of Wuhan virus vaccines, or holidaying in Hawaii when Australia was fighting wildfires, or failing to handle rape allegations involving politicians. Whether it will be Morrison or Albanese joining the summit at the Quad is something more than 17 million voters of Australia will decide. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.